ring operating out of Paris that might involve supernaturals. With little more than that to go on, they'd immediately caught the next flight to France, where a support team met them with weapons and other equipment. But going into unknown, not to mention possibly dangerous situations, was what being part of STAT was all about. She and her teammates ran around the world sniffing out threats to see if they were common everyday bad guys or scary things that went bump in the night. "I'm with you there." Harley scanned the people around them, who were gyrating under the colorful strobes on the nearby dance floor, while strategically placed black lights found the fluorescent paint on the exposed parts of their bodies. She wondered what constituted suspicious in a place like this. "Let's hope we get lucky." Caleb only grunted in reply. As they made their way through the club, Harley realized it was one thing to memorize a floor plan on a piece of paper, but a completely different thing to figure out where you were in that same building when it was filled with people. Within minutes, she had no idea where she was in relation to the entrance, and even less idea how much more area they needed to explore. The place was much bigger than it looked in the drawing. "We'll cover more ground if we split up," she said to Caleb. From the scowl on his face, Harley knew his first instinct was to say no, not because he thought she was wrong about being able to cover more ground on their own, but because he was worried about letting her search alone. Even though they'd only been working together for a few weeks, he'd already become like a big brother to her. It was sweet in a bittersweet kind of way, since she'd long ago given up on her real family. "The sooner we find these people, the sooner we can get out of here," she added before he protested. "We're in Paris. Don't you want to look around a little before McCabe puts us right back on a plane home? Besides, we'll be in constant radio communication. If I run into trouble, you can be there in seconds." He still seemed resistant to the idea, but after a few seconds he relented. "Okay, but don't do anything crazy, all right? At the first hint of danger, I want you on the radio. Not once something happens, but the second you get a funny feeling. Okay?" Harley nodded. "You too." Another grunt. Giving him a smile, she slipped into the crowd before Caleb could change his mind. It wasn't that she didn't like being part of STAT or working with Caleb. On the contrary, she loved hanging out with her teammates. But she'd been on her own for a long time. Depending on other people was something she would have to get used to again. She wandered through several smaller rooms, each filled with mobs of dancing people, pulsing music and flashing lights. Harley tried to ignore the extraneous and focus on the details, looking for anything that suggested there was a human or supernatural trafficking ring working out of the club. As she moved from room to room, she depended on her eyes to lead the way. As a werewolf, she should have been putting as much trust in her nose and ears, but she wasn't a big fan of that. While her boss, Nathan McKay, had hired her because of what she wasn't keen on using her werewolf abilities. Besides, they were kind of unreliable anyway. Sometimes she could smell a pizza delivery vehicle from half a mile away. Other times, she could barely smell her own perfume. Then again, maybe they were so inconsistent because she didn't make use of them. But since she refused to hone them, at the end of the day her ears and nose were going to do what they wanted. Which was why she was a little shocked when a familiar scent tickled her nose. She smelled a werewolf. And it wasn't Caleb or Jake. Even with her less than reliable nose, she knew that for sure. What were the chances of another werewolf in the club not being connected to an alleged supernatural trafficking ring? Harley stopped and sniffed the air, trying to be as subtle as she could. Then she was moving again, intent on tracking the scent to its source. Should she radio the team about her discovery or wait until she had more information? As sketchy as her nose was, it was possible the other werewolf had been in the club days ago.